Welcome in, everybody. Just a touch early on this Thursday night. I'm Michael Borky. Welcome to the Rebel Report. We've got some coach video for you tonight. The first and only time you're going to get to hear from Pete Golding and Charlie Weis Jr. this season. And to be honest with you, I hate that because both of them, in particular, Pete Golding's just awesome, especially in this setting. His answers are detailed. They're engaging. He's obviously very intelligent from a football perspective. He articulates his thoughts well. This is just outstanding stuff. It's 22 minutes long. I can't play the whole thing for you, but I've got 6 cuts from Pete that I really liked. Also 4 from Charlie Weis Jr. That it is just truly a shame that this is the only time you get to hear from them all season. And also, speaking of Pete Golding, got a new contract. A fat new contract, highest paid assistant in the SEC. He's earned every dollar. We'll talk about that as well on this edition of the podcast. Again, my name is Michael Borky. Don't forget to subscribe if you have not already, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Rebel Report right here and subscribe. And if you like what you hear, leave a rating and a review. And this edition of the show is brought to you in part by Toyota of Brookhaven. Check them out online. ToyotaBrookhaven.com is their website. So you don't have to live in Brookhaven. By the way, they're off of exit 40 in Brookhaven. But you don't have to live there to shop there. That's the thing about Toyota Brookhaven. They understand that the car buying experience can be fun for some, but also is serious for others and a big purchase and stressful at times. And they'll take care of you because that's what they do. They'll also give you $1,000 off on me. Any in-stock new Toyota, literally $1,000 off. Sorry, there's a bug in here. $1,000 off on me if you just tell them that I sent you. Their service department is one of the highest rated in the state as well. In-house financing, interest rates as low as 1.99%, especially if you're buying a new Tundra. So check them out, Toyota of Brookhaven, obviously right there in Brookhaven. They will deliver for you. Also, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment and all that stuff right here on YouTube as well. Subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like, all that good stuff so you never miss when we go live or when a new video gets posted. First of all, before we get into the Pete cuts, his contract extension. Sam Hutchins was the first one on this. He broke that Pete got a new contract, gave him a raise. He is the highest paid assistant in the SEC, $2.55 million, extending out to $2.7 million at the end of his deal. It's a 3-year contract, which is long for assistants. You don't really give assistants multi-year contracts like that very often. Pete, obviously, a little bit different. Couple thoughts on that. First, earned, absolutely earned. That side of the ball has been the consistent side of the ball, both on the field and also in recruiting and evaluating and just kind of showing up and being exactly what you think they are on almost a weekly basis. It's been remarkably consistent. The recruiting strategy, both via portal and in high school, has worked. The hit rate on players, the evaluations, everything has been extremely good under Pete Golding. So the highest paid assistant in the SEC, I think his unit has played like a guy that deserves that kind of a salary. And also that does a couple of things. One, that goes to show you yet again that Ole Miss is committed to winning in football in ways that they have not been in the past. It is very easy to say, like you see elsewhere, well, we're spending more than we ever have on football. Well, of course you are. Everybody is spending more on football than they ever have. What you need to be focused on is not how much money you are spending compared to you 5 years ago. It's how much money you are spending compared to your peers right now versus 5 years ago. That if they're raising and you are raising at the same rate, it doesn't matter, right? If they are raising and you are raising at an increased rate, that is what's important. Ole Miss has increased their investment in football compared to their peers more so than they ever have before. And this is another example of that. But also, I think, and you're going to hear a cut about it in a second, the stability that this provides is really significant. There's the emotional, the family side of things that kind of brought him and keeps him in Mississippi. As you guys heard me say before, I don't know if he will get said job, but I do expect whenever Lane Kiffin leaves for Pete Golding to be on the very short list to replace him at Ole Miss. This, I think, eliminates 99.9% of G5 jobs that if they want to try to come after him to make him their head coach monetarily, this is just a number that most of them simply cannot pay unless he's just desperate to be a head coach. But as you've heard him talk in the past, that doesn't sound like that's something that he's just itching to go do and leave Ole Miss to go do it. This provides stability on that side of the ball. That is huge considering, one, how good they are, and two, when you have Lane Kiffin as your head coach, offense is kind of your program's brand, or at least it's supposed to be. When you've got this kind of exceptional stability on the other side of the ball, that really helps your program a ton instead of cycling out defensive coordinators on an almost annual basis. So it's big news for Ole Miss. I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, I said on the radio, like a job like Tulane coming open would be interesting because I think that they would be insane not to go after him, and that would be the kind of G5 job that I think you expect to win at. But does that keep you in front of mind for a place like Ole Miss, knowing that that's the job, right? I don't know. I don't know those answers, but I do know that Ole Miss is paying a metric ton for their football coaches, and it's just proof positive that they're investing in ways that they haven't before. All right, to the audio cuts now. There's a bunch of them. Okay, so this might be well. Of course, I'll read some of your comments, but this might be the majority of the podcast because I have 10 video cuts for you from Pete Golding and Charlie Weis Jr. today. Really good. Here's the first one. Golding was asked on obstacles that they have to overcome losing and replacing what they lost from last year's team.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where we're at in college football, to be honest with you. You know, obviously we had 8 guys move on to fulfill their dreams, 5 of those guys being drafted. But you hope you're getting to a program that's year in and year out, right? Obviously the difference now is you can bring in some older veteran guys that have had experience, right, that now you just got to learn to the system. So the benefit of it right now is we've got all the young guys that I think are going to make the biggest jump this year have been in the system and played last year. Now, it might not have been when the game was on the line, right, and it might not have been the whole package, right? They just came in on base downs or they just came in on third down. It was very situational. But it's really nice to have the guys that have already been in the scheme, the Cam Franklins of the world, right, the Will Eccles of the world, right, all those guys that have been here, right, know the expectation, know what to do, and then seeing, right, them grow in the weight room from a strength and conditioning standpoint. And so I think we're going to be really excited with the guys that have already been here. And then obviously we lost some value all coming off the edge, right, from an elite pass rusher. And so going in and getting those 2 guys, right, whether it's being Prince Will, right, or from LSU, to where really be able to affect the passer like we did last year. I think those guys can really have elite ability to affect the passer on base downs and third down. And I think they give you some flexibility to move them around. So I think that was the big need. We didn't take one interior defensive lineman out of the portal because we felt like we did a good job in the last 2 classes of recruiting interior D linemen that had already been in the system that could play winning football, right? It was just those edges kind of between Womack, right, and Prince Will, right, from the transfer standpoint to give us some more depth at that, be able to move them around. So excited about the front. Sure. Yeah, and I think that's kind of.
Sorry about that loop for a second. So a couple things on that. First of all, if you're going to have lack of experience, at least it's going to be guys that were within your system. That was, kind of a no-brainer point, but I like the way he said that. Look, the guys that haven't played much, but they've been here, and that's a big deal because they know how, and especially when those guys got to sit behind first-round pick in Walter Nolan, guys that have, like, been through it and became stars, so they can kind of watch the process and learn from them is a big deal. And especially because he said that they didn't go to the portal for interior defensive linemen because they felt like they didn't need to. Well, as it turned out, in both portal windows, the interior defensive linemen available in the transfer portal, it was a bad year for interior defensive linemen. Those guys, there was no Walter Nolan available at all. Hell, there was not even a J.J. Pegues available really on the interior of the defensive line. So it's a good thing that Ole Miss recruited on the interior the way that they have lately, because if they were desperate for guys, that would have been a very difficult portal window because a lot of teams needed them and there weren't very many good ones. And the good ones that were available were extremely overpriced. And one popular one in particular that went to go play out west is not performing to expectations. Let's just put it that way. So pretty good timing on that front to be taken care of on the defensive line. He was asked about Jalen Braxton, the Arkansas transfer. Here is what he had to say about him.
He played him at both spots since he's been here. Obviously he came in, rehabbing an injury. So we started him at free safety in the spring, right, to learn that position because it's a harder spot because he's never played it. And then the summer he worked at nothing but corner, right? So he's got the versatility to be able to play all five. And so that's really going to be at a spot based on who we have healthy. But he'll be very versatile. He'll be the move part. There's going to be some games if he's healthy, he's going to be at corner. There's going to be some games if he's healthy, he's at free. He's got an elite skill set. He's got a really high football IQ. So he's just getting back now to where he's healthy. And so it's good to get him out there for a couple snaps because, the only thing we haven't seen him do it live here yet. Obviously, we love what we saw on tape, right, previous to the injury, but we love what he's wired with, right? I think he's really a high football IQ guy. So it gives us a lot of versatility with some length and some speed. So he'll definitely be a move piece for us.
Again, somebody that was not particularly available in the spring. Versatility is something that he talks about a good bit. Let's stay on the secondary theme for a second because this one is a little bit more detailed, I think, and it's more big picture about the entire secondary. Kind of a longer clip, but this is a good one here. Specifically, the defensive backs or the cornerbacks is what he's talking about here. But here's Pete Golding more on the secondary.
When you're counting on 9 guys in a secondary weren't here in the spring, that should be the question, right? So, we didn't have a lot of those guys, whether they're here, they weren't healthy, but the way the rules are in the summer now, right, with those 2 hours a week and all those type of things, the summer's really big for us, right, of obviously introducing the scheme, right, and from a technical standpoint and them being able to get some reps as well. But, obviously in this defense, you got to be solid outside in, right, so the corner position, I thought we brought in several guys that are playing at a really high level right now. I think Antonio Kite is who we thought he was when we signed him at Bama originally, right? He's really came in, a really athletic kid. Was committed to Alabama as a point guard first, all right? Really good transitional movements, could play the ball in the deep part of the field. Then this league, you play versus big people, so that was the whole thing of taking Ricky Fletcher out of South Alabama, who's a Mississippi kid that's 6'3.5", he's 200 pounds, right? And he's a size speed guy. That isolation in the boundary is not always an issue. And so Ricky had a really good summer. He's had a good fall camp. So excited to get him back. He was back out there today healthy as well. A guy that started at the position, obviously didn't play last year, right, due to an injury, but a guy that's had experience, has got size, speed, right, and it's not scared, of contact. And then you got Graves, obviously, that's been here a couple years, right, from an ability standpoint, it's never been the issue, right, it's the consistency doing it snap in and snap out, has a great understanding of the defense, right, has all the tools, right, in that fight. Really excited about Dante Core, all right, a true freshman. I think he's got an elite skill set and just a different mentality. You saw him out there today. He's going against a senior, right? Really good double move, touchdown on him, but he's got amnesia, and it's hard for 18-year-old kids to actually do that. And he goes and spots the ball, and it doesn't affect the next step. But I think he's going to be a really good player in the future. And then we got to get some guys healthy. Said Beavers had a really good spring, right? Was having a really good summer, got banged up. He came back today as well, so it's really good to get back there. He's the fastest kid on our team, all right? So a smaller field corner, right, that has the ability to play man-to-man. But we've got several guys in that room right now that are competing their butt off. And I will feel really good about 4 of them by the end of it, that we think we could play winning football with in the SEC and not miss a beat.
That clip should be a reminder of what we talked about during the spring, how concerned they were with the secondary, the all is well stuff around the secondary during the spring. That yet again, there's another example of them. Sometimes coaches talking coach speak. Sometimes they talk good about a position group while being vague, and they don't really believe it. What they couldn't hide what they felt about the secondary after the spring. 9 players in the secondary either were limited, did not participate in spring, or were not on the team in spring. That's a tall task for that defense. They really had nothing in the spring. But Kite got a shout out. Fletcher as well. That was interesting hearing him mention those two first. Often, Antonio Kate, by the way, the Auburn transfer, Ricky Fletcher, the South Alabama transfer that did not play last year, but is a big body guy. But often when a coach is asked a generic question about a position group, listen closely to the first names that get mentioned. Uh, Not that I'm telling you anything you probably don't already know. Breaking news, more at 11. But that is the thing. The guys that get voluntarily brought up are the ones that they like the most. It's very simple. Um, those two being the guys that Pete Golding gave specific shout outs to as to guys that they think are ready and capable of playing now, especially Fletcher with his size, is is an encouraging answer. What you got there, it was position of deep, deep concern after the spring, and it sounds like, even though it's a lot of new, they really like what they've got compared to what they had in the spring, at least. So, couple more, excuse me, three more actually. He was asked about a really good question about what they look for in the transfer portal. Like when you're looking for a portal player, what exactly do you look for? This is a very long answer. It is worth your time. It's 3 minutes long, but again, it is worth your time hearing Pete Golding talk about what they're seeking when they go looking for players in the transfer portal.
I think it's a great question. I think the biggest thing, when most guys aren't playing where they're at, there's a reason. All right, and I think that a lot of times happens in the portal. They were this 5-star recruit, all right, or they were this highly recruited player that didn't pan out. They never played. There's a reason he didn't play. All right, whether he's not athletic enough, whether he's not fast enough, or doesn't have a high enough football IQ, right, to be able to understand the defense. So we don't take guys in the portal that weren't starters from where they're at, number one, right? Because obviously if you're not good enough to play for them, you're probably not good enough to play for us, regardless of what team you're on. And I think what that comes with is with experience. All right, so obviously they have game experience. They've been in big games. Y'all remember in this meeting last year, the focus was SEC transfers because I felt like when we got to Georgia, the moment was too big. Right, we had took starters. Right, Dejon Anthony was a starter, but he's coming from Liberty. Right, John Saunders was a starter, but he's coming from Miami, Ohio. Nothing against those schools. Right, but that moment, here's a top 10 matchup. Right, Georgia at night. I just felt like that game got to us kind of emotionally, and we didn't play our best. And so that year, obviously, was looking at, hey, SEC first, right, more based on, hey, they've been in that stadium. They're not going to take a picture when they get there, right? They've been in big moments, right? They've been in bowl games, right? They've been in all those things. So that's just the next game when you get there. So obviously, we like to do that first. I think this is the best league in college football. So if they're starting in this league and we can get them, great, right? And then obviously, number one for us, I think the tape evaluation is easy. I think anybody, right? Y'all can watch the tape and, damn, he's a good player, right? But number one, from a football intelligence standpoint, right? He was in English. He's coming here. It's about to be French. Right? Does he have the ability, right, to process it, right, to get on the field and show you the same things that he was doing? Number two is what systems he's in. A lot of systems, right, like go and base around certain characteristics that make good players. Right? And sometimes you move them to a spot, right, and they're not a good player anymore, right, because it's not the same system. So I think we're specifically looking for certain traits, right, obviously when we watch tape, right, but I think that's for high school players. Right, guys that are DB that can run, right, can play the ball in the deep part of the field, can tackle, right. I think when you go from the transfer standpoint, they better be a system fit, number one, on tape, right. Number two, right, they need to be the guy where they're at. But number three, we do a great job in the evaluation process. Is this somebody our players want to be around, right? We put a lot on our players when we bring a guy in on an OV, right, and they're hanging out with them. We get their feedback before we're ever going to take a guy. All right, because they've actually hung out with them right outside of this building, saw some true colors, and say, hey, is this going to be a good teammate and somebody you want to go to war with or not? And so we get a lot of feedback from those guys. But the big part for us is, to me, it's football IQ. Everybody can watch the tape, right? And I think a lot of times in recruiting right now, there's some people that love football, and there's some people that love what football can do for them, right? And the paycheck looks good, and the car's good, and the condo's better, right? And I'm going to the country club with the coaches and doing all those things. But at the end of the day, when it gets hard, they don't love football. Right, and they start running from it. So I think that's our biggest thing in the evaluation process. It's not the tape, right? It's really who they are, right? Do they love football, and do they have a high football IQ, or are they going to be a good teammate?
Like I told you, there is a lot there. That is a hell of an answer from Pete Golding. And Peyton, if you're not trying to hear it, brother, then nobody's making you stay here. So, I mean, I know you're just in here to troll, but there are other places you can go if you don't want to hear Ole Miss coaches talk on an Ole Miss-based podcast. But that is a hell of an answer from Pete Golding, and there's so much there to digest. It's hard even to kind of figure out where to begin. Most importantly, though, the comment about I don't want players that are going to be walking on the field taking pictures of the stadium when you're going to play at Georgia. Actually named players by name, but talked about how the moment was too big, and that's in part why they got beat so bad. They don't want guys taking pictures of stadiums when they walk into them. They want guys walking in there thinking, I've got a job to do. We're going to go take care of our business and get out of there with a win. That is the kind of culture changing that takes a while. It both exists within a fan base and also within a team, of course. And culture is a word that people just kind of throw around on football teams. It's a buzzword, but that kind of shows you how they needed to change narrative and mindset within their own team. That takes a while to get guys to realize that Georgia's not special. And if you think they're special, they're going to kick your ass. I mean, forgive my language, but that is what he's saying there. Is we had guys that when we were walking on the field at Georgia, they were taking pictures of the stadium about how cool it was. That you get your ass kicked when you walk into a stadium acting like that. That's what the FCS teams do. That's not what you're supposed to do in a conference game. And so that whole answer was fascinating, but that moment in particular was one that stood out to me. All right, a couple more before we get to Charlie. First, on the defensive line, it's just a funny the very beginning is just funny to me. So he was asked about the defensive line. Here's what he said.
I mean, obviously, I think, anywhere from a defensive standpoint, you got to stop the run in order to have fun. You know what I'm saying? So, I think the benefit of having good players up front, and then obviously what you do up front to cancel gaps and to help guys to change the math, but you don't have to put everybody in the box to do it. Obviously that's the problem in this league. You can design something to stop it based on numbers, but then now you got a one-on-one matchup you don't like. So I think it's really important in this league. When we first got here, we felt like we got to fix the front. Right, and I don't care what type of coach you are. If you don't have good players, you're not a good coach. All right, so obviously from the recruiting standpoint, that was so big when I first got here. It was like, hey, 5-hour radius, right? D lineman that we want, we need to get, right? But you got to change, right, what it looks like, right? So we're showing Bama tape when you first get here. You got to put a product on film, right? Does it make sense? So I think that was the exciting thing of what the legacy of that last group created for them. What is like, hey, we're going to do it at Ole Miss because they just did it. They just led the SEC. Right, I can stay in my state, right, compete in the best conference in college football and still lead the SEC in defense. So, obviously, those guys did a tremendous job last year, but that was last year. And that was the thing, when we had our first spring meeting, the legacy of that team's over, right, and that defense is over. This defense hasn't done anything yet. The standard's the same, right, does that make sense? But we got to come to work every day. I think we got enough talent in the room, but we had some tough guys in that room that had a high football IQ and loved to compete and play football. And I think we got the same type of guys right now. Not the same names. It's not going to be jersey number 2. It's not going to be Walter Nolan, right? But I think you're going to see some different names, some different numbers, and see a lot of the same results because they understand what we do. They understand the expectation, and obviously they're good enough.
Got to stop the run to have fun. That cracks me up. But a specific point to mention in-state recruiting, especially on the defensive line, that stood out to me a little bit. Makes you wonder why they can't do that on the other side of the line of scrimmage. But they expect the same results. That has been a talking point, a buzz phrase. He didn't say that they don't expect to be different or they expect similar results. And that was a group in 2023, as we talk about often, especially in the front six, that was highly productive. Sacks, TFLs, havoc rate, very good. This team, I think, is more talented than the 23 defensive line. So can they continue that high level of creating havoc, getting after the quarterback, big plays defensively, stuff like that? I really do think that they can. So anyway, all right. Last thing from Pete. He was asked about consistency when it comes to like everything, but in particular, he's talking about messaging and recruiting. Very interesting. And here that is now.
I mean, the top defensive players over the last 10 years have been taken from Bama and Georgia because of the consistency of the schemes, right? And that's it, Right? You recruit good players. You don't change the system, right? And then now they go to the next level. So with Coach Kiff being here and his family here and Knox moving here, right? We moved here for our family, right? We got a new contract and all that. There's stability in the head coach and your defensive system. And so when you get really good players in that, know that system's not going to change. Now your junior year, your most important year because you're draft eligible, it's the third year in the same system. So a lot of the ones that we don't get out of high school that we develop really good relationships, we're telling them all these things. And we say, hey, you can go chase this. And I know it sounds good right now. And it's really hard. It's 18 years old. But this is what's going to happen. This is no different with Trey Amos, right, when he was leaving ULL to go to Alabama. Right? I told him exactly, this is what's going to happen. They're not moving Kool-Aid. They're not moving Terrion. I know they're telling you that. It's not going to happen. So then a year later, they didn't. So now he's calling, dude, coach, you were right. All right, so you build some trust there, and obviously you're trying to recruit them the right way. But obviously the system didn't change, right? You were recruiting them. They were interested because they liked your system, the head coach, right, the town, the school. So that second time is always easier, in my opinion, right, when you've built it the right way. And no different than I tell a recruit right now, man. I was like, look, there could come to a point where you're not going to come to Ole Miss. Hey, just call me, coach. Love you, appreciate you. No telling what the future holds, right? But I'm going to go in a different direction. Because you have no idea, that guy that you're talking to, where he's going to be or if you're going to end up back there. And that's the same thing from recruiting. I'm not getting pissed off, right, when a guy picks Oklahoma right over us, right? I'm upset. We got to do a better job of recruiting it. We didn't do a good enough job selling it, right? But it's not like I'm telling the kid go to hell, right? Hey, best of luck to you, right? Hey, we're here. You know where to find us, right? Because obviously that day comes for everybody. Does that make sense?
The first part of that answer, if you're one of those people that's a worrier, you think that everybody's going to take your coach all the time, that first part of that answer should make you feel pretty good. The consistency, not only in from his perspective, saying he's going to be here, talking about Lane, and I'm going to be here. We're going to be here. So if you want to go chase the bag, if you want to go do that, not only are we going to be here, but the promises that we are making are going to come true. That they are realistic. We are being real with you, and we will be here. So you go off over there, and when you do go there, and you learn that it's not that way, after I told you it's not that way, we'll be here waiting for you. So mention Trey Amos being one, and then he also made reference to, didn't say the player, but made reference to a defensive line recruit that they lost to Oklahoma, and you could kind of hear that you know, the player is off. He's going to go to Oklahoma, but are they going to be there when you get there? If Oklahoma has the season that they can, everybody's hyping up Oklahoma. They are an offseason darling to some degree, but is that staff going to be there by the time you get there? Because this one will be, is what he was just saying there. Really interesting stuff. Podcast is brought to you in part by Priority One Bank. They make you their priority every single day with their online banking platform and 16 locations here in the state of Mississippi. All you need is an internet connection, and you can do whatever it is that you need to do with your money. They're right here, local to you. They're nearby me. I go once a week at least to my Priority One Bank location. They also have local loan servicing and decision-making because they will make you their priority. Bank with me at Priority One Bank. All right. Less detailed from Charlie Weis Jr., but still some clips nonetheless. Here is what the Ole Miss offensive coordinator had to say about running backs.
Definitely have seen improvement. You know, I think it's a good group of guys with some different skill sets. You know, Kewan Lacey has a little bit more of that home run threat, you know, that we certainly need and that we've had in the past, but I think he'll be able to replicate that for us. And then Logan and DT are guys that, you know, are very powerful runners. They're very disciplined runners, know how to run. They do a good job of not getting you into negative play situations and staying ahead of the sticks, which is very important, you know, when you know, your explosive offense and you're trying to push the ball down the field. You know, when you run the ball, you obviously want it to be efficient and effective, and all three of those guys do a good job with that.
So, like we said before, first name mentioned, always important. Talking about Lacey first, it's pretty clear that that's going to be RB1 for Ole Miss this year, barring something changing. But I actually do buy it. I buy it on running backs, that they have more depth in size in particular. That is clear. But they have more usable depth than they did a year ago. Now, why they were playing a walk-on who was both undersized and not athletic enough and a backup wide receiver over Ulysses Bentley at the running back position, I mean, that's just a mystery that will never be solved. But he wasn't good enough is not an adequate answer when you're, again, an undersized an unathletic, comparatively speaking, walk-on plays in front of said guy. This year, on paper, it looks like that position is better. They really loved Lacey in recruiting. Diggs is proven when healthy, and Taylor also at it, at the Sun Belt level. But still, there is a path for that position to being better than it was a year ago for sure. Wide receiver is a common theme here, but here's what Charlie Weis Jr. had to say about his wide receiver room.
I've been really blessed with the receiver position here, since I've been here, having lots of good players. I think the thing that sticks out with this year's group, and I think coaches said it, is just the depth of the room where, we feel we're going to be able to play 6, 7, guys deep, which will certainly help us as the year progresses, right? Because you want to be able to rotate those guys, keep them fresh, and that's something that we certainly see able, and I definitely think it'll be a strength of our offense.
Have you seen Caleb Odom make that transition? It's kind of first thing we noticed when camp started of shifting
right.
to tight end.
I think he's done a great job with it. That's been a really good move for him. I think it really highlights the things that he does really well of being a bigger bodied slot, being able to be in the core to do certain things in the run game, being able to flex out as the single receiver. It allows us to be a lot more multiple with him compared to him just sticking as an outside receiver, kind of like he played in the spring where, hey, he's just standing out there. And there's some things that he certainly does well at that, but maybe some other things that don't use his strengths to the best of his ability. So I think put him at tight end, you're able to get really creative, do a whole bunch of things, and allows us to utilize more personnel groupings too, where, in some groups he may be a slot, in some groups he may be a true tight end, in some groups he may be an outside receiver. So that's been a very interesting move for us, and I'm excited to see where that goes.
Forgot to mention that I also included a follow-up question about Caleb Odom in particular playing tight end as part of the receiver group. There's consistency in the message about what they feel about the wide receivers. It's been that way really since the portal class started taking shape and they went through spring practice. They believe they're significantly better at wide receiver. Well, was asked later in the press conference about whether or not, do you intend on using all of the guys you talked about? And his answer was absolutely yes. So prove it. If you're 6'7" deep at wide receiver, show me. Show everybody that you are, because that you have not done that to this point, which is fine. The receiver position has worked, largely speaking, at Ole Miss. But if you say you're that deep, let's actually see that depth. And then the Odom thing is most definitely interesting. Can he be somebody that they weaponize him in ways that allows them to be a little bit more creative, creating mismatches? We'll see. I don't know about the Has injury. I assume they have learned that they can't line him up at true tight end and expect him to be as effective in the run game. So this being creative with him instead of just throwing him out on the outside and throwing, jump balls to him, moving him around, creating some matches possibly. They need to be more creative as an offense this year, and that kind of sounded like they were working on just that, at least with that particular player. So he was asked about the offensive line, and it was such a stock answer. I'm not even going to bother playing it for you. It's fine. It was just John Garrison's doing a great job. Feels like there's 7 or 8 guys that they can play, whatever. Okay, it was a very stock answer. Was asked about, though, the freshman that is continuing apparently to get some snaps, especially with injuries being what they've been so far at Ole Miss, and that's Devin Harper. So here was his answer on that.
Devin has relentless effort. I mean, for a true freshman, he plays extremely hard. He's extremely talented, very athletic. So those are the things that, number one, stand out. He's got to continue, obviously, to work on the playbook, his strength, all the other traits that come with time, you know what I mean? But this is probably the most talented true freshman lineman I think that we've seen here since I've been here, with a guy that's got a very elite skill set, and he's got the right mindset, tenacity that you want for that position to play early.
So we'll see. That's literally my only note on that is sounds good. We'll see. Sounds good. We'll see. And finally, he was asked a lot of questions about Austin Simmons. This is the answer that I liked the most. He was asked, what are some of the things that you guys really emphasized that you worked on this offseason to get him better. Here's what he had to say about that.
Yeah, I think with Austin, there's certainly several things that we wanted to work on. I think number one, it was a big deal of just him taking over his leadership with the team, because you're replacing a guy with Jackson who was an alpha type guy who had the locker room and had a certain personality about him. And so I think it was a big deal for us of transitioning Austin number one, into that leadership style and letting him be who he is. He doesn't need to be Jackson Dart. He doesn't need to be Matt Corral. He could be Austin, and he could be exactly who he is. And it's been really cool seeing his transition over time and how he's handled that. And then certainly there's things too, like we knew the certain throws that he throws really well, and we'll try to formulate our offense, that accentuate those throws. But then there's certain throws that, he needed to get better at, and we've continued to work on that, from spring ball to summer to fall camp, continuing till today. And so we'll continue to work on those things.
That sounded to me like it's mostly mental. Like that's what they're focused on, is mostly just getting him up to speed as a leader, as a quarterback that handles all the other stuff. He talked about a couple of throws as well, but physically, I think that they believe that he's there, that it's just mental that they spend time working on. So interesting stuff from both. Really, particularly impressed with Pete Golding. It is just a shame that we don't get to hear from him more, but it was good when you got it. So there you go. Well, we'll rapid fire these comments after I tell you the podcast is brought to you in part by Advantage Business Systems. Check them out online at absms.com for anything office technology related. If you're a Mississippi business and you need technology in the office, absms.com. Tell them I sent you, and they'll perform an office technology assessment on me. Again, if you just tell them that I sent you. All right, Alabama fans stay salty about Pete Golding. He's just so impressive. No kidding. That was the dumbest. And fans saying stuff, whatever. The media that covers their team talking about not that good, not going to be a loss, whatever, it was such garbage. And it was garbage at the time because we talked about it. And the more this goes, the more ridiculous they looked. Since taking over, Ole Miss has risen from the mid-70s in total defense all the way up to number 2 last year. Yeah, and they're going to stay closer to 2 than 70 moving forward. Thoughts on Tennessee leaving Nike for a bigger paycheck with Adidas? Yeah, I get that the school got paid, but it's a bad move. Adidas is poor in quality, and players' fans got screwed. It is bad for the fans, ultimately, but you got to find the dollar any way you can. Adidas is willing to pay their players. The Ole Miss should consider looking into that from somebody. I know you don't want to move off Nike, but look at what Ole Miss's Nike contract is compared to the rest of the SEC. It's bigger than some, but with what their brand is now, they should consider looking for more value, or at least for Nike to increase what they're currently getting. So entertainment with Hugh Freeze is never ending. Been a great week for that. Oh my gosh. And then him trying to explain the offensive play calling strategy is just unbelievable. So if you guys missed it, apparently they're going to have a play caller for first down, a different one for second down, and a different one for third down. And then you can intervene whenever he feels like it. On top of the admitting that they're babying Jackson Arnold, and now you got a video of him throwing his visor, which that's not a big deal. I don't know why, like a media member deleting that. Why'd you delete that? What, did they make you? Well, then tell them no. And why would Auburn want that deleted? So a quarterback has a bad rep and a coach gets onto him, and we are so soft that we have to delete that? Give me a break. He's a multi-million-dollar professional football player. He made a mistake in practice, and his coach got mad at him. And you're deleting the video because you can't get that out? Gosh, we baby college football players more than we baby high school football players. It's a joke. He's a professional football player worth millions of dollars. He got chewed out at practice, and you got to delete that? Why? Now, here I am defending Hugh Freeze. Completely out on them having a chance. They're losing to Baylor. I tend to agree. If you had told me 10 years ago that we'd be paying the head coach 8 figures and defensive coordinator would make what Hugh made his first year at Ole Miss, I would have never believed you. Times have changed in a good way. If Ole Miss could recruit on the D-line like Pete, on the O-line like Pete does on the D-line, Ole Miss would be a national power. That is Lane Kiffin's done a lot of great things at Ole Miss. Well, the way that they have recruited and developed offensive line is the worst. The second worst. The running back situation last year is the worst thing that has happened. That's worse than the way he handled Auburn, I think. But it's a mix between those three things. Pick your order. How he handled the Auburn thing in 22, Bentley, and offensive line recruiting. Pick your order. Jackson Arnold isn't about to have 4 to 5 seconds to get the ball out. Cam will be in the portal. Ole Miss is a playoff appearance away from being a national title contender program. The steps to me are make the playoff, win a couple playoff games, and then you start talking about that. You want to see Dart's presser on praising the Giants O-line. He said that's the cleanest pocket he's ever had. Keep in mind, this is the Giants O-line, speaks volumes on how bad it is. I wouldn't read too much into that. I think that's simply a quarterback kind of gassing up his guys now. I don't. If you watch the game, the offensive line didn't play particularly great in front of them. I think that people are hyper focused on how bad things have gotten on the offensive line at Ole Miss compared to literally just the trenches on the other side of the ball. I don't think that was anything other than just a quarterback on a new team praising his guys after having a good game. All in on Golding being the next head coach whenever Lane decides to leave, probably to the NFL. If Lane wants an NFL job, he's got to cut out some of the goofy stuff, personally. Ole Miss should bring back Matt Luke as offensive line coach. He would not tell them yes, at least not right now. The line play is fading across all of football. It is, but it's worse at Ole Miss. Robert mentions LSU. LSU's offensive line was great last year. I mean, they sent players to the NFL. Look at the last couple of years with Ole Miss on the offensive line. It's just they're not doing a good job of creating higher level offensive linemen. Tomorrow, Michigan gets their punishment from the NCAA. Doubt it's anything serious, but if they did get a bowl ban, couldn't they just fight it or ignore it? I mean, I guess they probably could sue, but this is one of the few things that the NCAA can punish you for that is agreeable from everyone. Got to have someone to prioritize offensive line. What they've been doing hasn't translated on the field, either lack of development or evaluation. They haven't hit on either. Probably lacking in high-end talent in the portal as well. We're all a similar offense in terms of production and conference play. Same struggles as last season. What's their record? 8-4. Could you see a scenario where a school like Texas Tech or West Virginia try to do what Memphis and SMU did and buy a spot in the SEC? Would the SEC do it? No, they would not. No, they would not. Wish we could hear Golding more. No kidding. Sorry, I'm doing rapid fire tonight. We were in Sturgis today. It's been a long day. Back-to-back shows out of town. After last week, back-to-back shows in Oxford. Next week, back-to-back shows out of town. And 2 weeks from now, 2 shows out of town as well. And way out of town too. So it's just kind of stacking up. I shouldn't complain about that. It's not a big deal, but anyway. Let's see. Why is it that Mississippi State seems to be getting more mainstream love lately? I haven't seen that. To be honest with you, and it's not a slight, it's just reality. I don't think they're getting any attention, really. Locally, of course, we on the radio show are talking about them heavily because, of course, we are. Half our audience is a State fan, but I haven't noticed the same thing you have. But I might not be looking in the right places either. You wouldn't have thought in 2020 that Ole Miss would develop into a defense-first program under Kiffin, but here we are. No kidding. Lane has yet to go consecutive seasons at Ole Miss without 10 regular season wins. That is inaccurate. But he has done a good job lately, but that is they went 8-5 in 2022. They went 9-3 last year. So I think we should give Pete Golding a shot to pull double duty as O-line and running back coach. Do I think Pete Golding would have played Bentley? Yeah. Maybe in the minority, but the secondary as a whole is more talent than last year. I don't know. Trey Amos was pretty incredible. Ole Miss is officially a kickoff to start both halves of the game type program. Let the other team's offense make a mistake. They're not there yet. Not there yet. Pete seems to think so. The overall talent is deeper and maybe not a standout guy yet. Time will tell. I just saw what Trey Amos was able to do, and I don't think they've got that guy yet. We'll see. I don't think they have that guy yet. He was special. I mean, he was special right away. That quote about recruiting was fantastic. No kidding. No kidding. Last year, the secondary got into a problem against LSU where it was Kennedy being picked on the whole game when they put Lacey in motion on him in overtime and it was a touchdown. Wasn't it him, though, that on one of the fourth down touchdown that tied the game and sent it to overtime? It was almost kind of a stupid throw. The coverage was basically perfect, and it was a perfect throw, but probably ill-advised, more lucky than good almost, because the coverage was basically perfect. But I'm with you, yeah. Starting to pivot away from the Oklahoma hype, was getting high on them recently. Now I'm out again. I'm out. I've never been in, but I'm out for sure. Seem to remember having a home run back last year, but it wasn't seen much. No kidding. Not buying the Oklahoma hype. Have you checked out Washington State schedule? That was so soft. Mississippi State could have went to a bowl game with that schedule. That there is a big jump that they're taking. Do you think the running back room is much better, assuming Lacey's the top guy? Healthy Diggs is RB2. I believe that's how that'll shake out, yeah. Yeah, that video of me sarcastically talking about Bentley's preseason game got like a billion views on our TikTok page, which is still pretty new, and it's not our shows, it's Super Talk. So if you guys want to follow it, go for it. But there is political stuff on there. Just a warning. We encourage all of you to follow Super Talk on TikTok, but just know that there will be political posting on there with political commentator Richard Cross. And also Gerard Gibbert, who does a politics show as well. So just, be prepared for that. But yeah, subscribe there. Blocking with the tight ends is very important. Caleb Odom needs to be good at that to help Haz and Wright. Want to see 2 tight end sets, please? Me too. Remember all that hype about Ely playing slot receiver? That never happened. He didn't have to, though. That was the thing. Also on short yardage, was watching some pass game highlights the other day in the 23 Egg Bowl, for example, had Big E's going directly up the middle with 2 lead blockers. Why not do that again? In Gainesville, they had it schemed up right. There was 2 times where he tried to bounce it outside that didn't make sense. Pete Golding answered a lot today in his press conference. Yeah, he did. He was very impressive. I would encourage you guys to watch the entire thing if you have not. How are we evaluating the aspect of Simmons not being as much of a runner? Jackson ran a lot and picked up some valuable yards in games. They have to have a steady run game. He's athletic enough to do it. I think the biggest difference will be Simmons will be less prone to physical running. That'll be the biggest difference. I think he'll be less prone to physical running, which is probably ultimately a good thing. I think Dart got himself hurt by being a little reckless. So 37 minutes in just now at the comments. Yeah, no kidding. I'm way behind. Can't go a show without talking about Hugh Freeze. He just can't stop. He can't stop. Buy Tennessee stock in the future, that Adidas money is going to have some impact on recruiting? Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah, again, Dart's O-line comments weren't about his preseason game. It was about the joint practice. Yeah, there are other reasons to not believe in Ole Miss's offensive line than Dart. I don't know. I kind of shrug at stuff like that. Matt Corral said some stuff right after he got drafted that was similar. It's just like, sounds like more of a guy that's trying to gas up people around him than take a shot at his old place. Arkansas fires Pittman. Can we pick him up as an offensive line coach? He will retire, I believe, is what will happen. Like Nike more, but their deal with Fanatics has most of their gear looking like garbage. Absolutely. Fanatics is a joke, and Nike partnering with them is a joke. And I think Ole Miss would ever switch to Jordan. Yeah, they used to have this kind of rule that they would only have one school per conference, but that's over now with Oklahoma. So Josh paid on Outkick today, said State fans are nicer than Ole Miss fans. Who cares? Whatever. Do not care. Not that you said that. I just whatever. Let you know, whatever. That's just yapping to yap. Is what that is. Ole Miss fans have beef with Josh Pate before because he hasn't been the yeah. Love to see Jordan and Ole Miss collaborating. We'll see. My mouse is messing up, but see, and it's stuff like that. I had issues that I won't disclose. Whatever. Okay. Don't mention it if you're not going to talk about it. I don't know. That's just me. I wouldn't worry about, and that includes me, by the way. It just guys like me, just talking heads. We don't matter if somebody that has a platform says something about you guys. Whatever. Truly, at the end of the day, what does my opinion, if it's like, if it upsets you, what does that matter? Who cares? If any of these guys, Feinbaum, Pate, Andy Staples, if any of them speak on an entire fan base negatively, and like I do it sometimes too, but like, who cares? Don't even worry about it. It doesn't matter. It absolutely does not matter. I know he's got a big platform, and like we had him as a guest at Media Days. Like I like him, but if he's ripping on a fan base, who cares? If I am ripping on the fan base, who cares? It doesn't matter. We don't matter. We're just here to entertain you as best we can, and there are so many options. If one of them is going to have negative opinions about you as a fan base, just hit the unsubscribe button and find a different one. There are plenty of options and plenty of good ones. So that's just me. But anyway, I appreciate that, James. Thank you. I'm not fishing for compliments. I'm just saying, truly, if I were to come on here one night and Ole Miss fans, you guys suck. You guys are pretentious, and I hate you guys. Who cares? Unsubscribe. Find a different one. It is just that simple anymore. So anyway, appreciate you guys. Went longer than I was intending to, but that's okay. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself, had fun, and I'll see you guys on Sunday night. We'll be back on Sunday. Appreciate you being here. I think there's going to be some stuff, not like breaking news or whatever, but there's going to be some stuff that will happen between now and then that we'll get to talk about on Sunday. So enjoy your weekend, and I will see you guys on the next one.